Ayrton Senna, the legend of speed. Speed, precision, and an unbreakable will to win, these are the qualities that made Ayrton Senna one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. But beyond the records and championships, Senna was a man of deep passion, faith, and an unrelenting desire to push the limits of what was possible. Join us as we explore the extraordinary life of a man who was more than just a racer. He was a legend. Chapter 1. Humble Beginnings. Ayrton Senna da Silva was born on March 21, 1960, in São Paulo, Brazil. From a young age, he showed a deep interest in motorsports. Unlike many Formula One drivers who came from wealthy European families, Senna grew up in a country where Pelé was king of football. But his passion lay elsewhere, on the racetrack. His father, Milton da Silva, was a businessman who supported his son's racing dreams. By the age of 4, Ayrton was already driving a small go-kart that his father had built for him. Senna quickly proved to be a natural. His first official race came when he was 13 years old, and he won. From that moment, there was no turning back. He continued kart racing throughout his teenage years, refining his skills and developing the precision and bravery that would later define his Formula One career. Even in those early years, Senna was fiercely competitive, obsessed with perfection, and deeply driven to succeed. I learned everything in karting. It was pure racing, real racing. Senna. Chapter 2. The Rise to Formula One. In 1981, Senna moved to Europe to compete in single-seater racing. He dominated the British Formula Ford 1600 series, winning the championship in his first season. His rise was meteoric. By 1983, he won the British Formula 3 championship, catching the attention of Formula One teams. He tested with Williams, McLaren, Brabham, and Toleman. Eventually, Toleman gave him a chance, and in 1984, Ayrton Senna made his Formula One debut. Despite driving an underpowered car, Senna stunned the world at the Monaco Grand Prix that year. In a rain-soaked race, he overtook car after car, closing in on the race leader, Alain Prost. The race was controversially stopped just as Senna was about to take the lead. It was a moment that announced his arrival. The world had just witnessed the brilliance of Ayrton Senna. Chapter 3. The McLaren Era, Rivalry and Glory. In 1988, Senna joined McLaren, forming one of the most intense rivalries in F1 history with his teammate, Alain Prost. The two drivers clashed frequently, both on and off the track. Their rivalry reached its peak in 1989 and 1990, with controversial crashes deciding the championship both times. But when Senna was at his best, he was unstoppable. His ability to drive in the rain, his unmatched qualifying speed, and his sheer determination set him apart. He won 3 Formula One World Championships with McLaren in 1988, 1990, and 1991. His most famous race came in 1991 at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Driving with a failing gearbox, stuck in 6th gear, he fought through the pain and exhaustion to win his home race for the first time. It was more than just a victory. It was a moment of pure national pride. Chapter 4. The Williams Tragedy. In 1994, Senna made a move to Williams, seeking a new challenge. But the season started poorly. The car was difficult to drive, and Senna failed to finish the first 2 races. Then came the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola. The weekend was already tragic. Senna's friend and fellow driver, Roland Ratzenberger, died in a crash during qualifying. Senna was deeply shaken. On race day, as he led the Grand Prix, disaster struck. On lap 7, Senna's car went off the track at high speed, crashing into the barriers. Despite the efforts of the medical team, Ayrton Senna was pronounced dead. The world was in shock. Brazil lost its greatest racing hero, and Formula One lost one of its most beloved champions. Chapter 5. Legacy of a Champion. Ayrton Senna was more than just a driver. He was an icon, a man who pushed himself to the limit in search of greatness. Beyond racing, Senna was deeply involved in charity work. After his passing, the Ayrton Senna Institute was established to support education for underprivileged children in Brazil. Even today, decades after his death, Senna remains an inspiration. His commitment, his faith, and his relentless pursuit of excellence continue to influence new generations of drivers. Ayrton Senna lived for racing, but his legacy goes far beyond the track. He showed us what it means to fight, to dream, and to never give up. Ayrton Senna was my hero. Lewis Hamilton.
Learn English with Ayrton Senna's story. We're going to break down key vocabulary, grammar points, and language tips from Senna's story. This is your chance to improve your English while learning about an inspiring figure. First, let's look at some of the most important words and phrases from the story. 1. Unrelenting. We said that Senna had an unrelenting desire to push the limits. Unrelenting means never giving up or stopping. Example: the athlete showed unrelenting dedication to training. 2. Meteoric. We described Senna's rise in motorsport as meteoric. This means very fast and sudden, like a meteor. Example: the young singer had a meteoric rise to fame. 3. Precision. We said Senna had speed, precision, and determination. Precision means being very accurate and exact. Example: a surgeon must work with great precision. 4. Rivalry. Senna and Prost had a fierce rivalry. A rivalry is a strong competition between two people or groups. Example: the rivalry between the two teams made the match exciting. 5. Tragedy. We talked about the tragedy of Imola. A tragedy is a very sad event. Example: the loss of a great leader is always a tragedy. Next, let's explore some important grammar points from Senna's story. Past simple versus past perfect. We use these two tenses a lot in the story. Let's compare them with examples. Past simple. Senna won his first kart race when he was 13. Past perfect. By the time he joined Formula One, he had already won several championships. See the difference? Past simple is used for a completed action in the past. Past perfect is used to show that one past action happened before another past action. The first conditional. We said, "If I give up, we shall all be lost." The first conditional sentence follows this structure. If plus present simple, comma, plus will, won't plus base form of the verb. Examples: if you practice every day, you will improve your English. If Senna had stayed at McLaren, he would have won more races. Use the first conditional to talk about possible future situations. Speaking and pronunciation tips. Now, let's improve your pronunciation. Here are 3 tricky words from the story. Precision. Say it with me. Precision. Unrelenting. Break it down. Unrelenting. Rivalry. Notice the tricky V sound. Rivalry. Practicing pronunciation helps build confidence in speaking. Try saying these words out loud. Learning tips: how to think in English. Finally, here's a powerful tip for learning English. Think in English. Senna didn't think about breaking in Portuguese and then translate it into action. He reacted instinctively. The same goes for language learning. Instead of translating every word, try this. 1. Describe things around you in English. Instead of thinking mesa in Portuguese, think table. 2. Use English every day. Listen to English podcasts, watch English movies, and tune into my channel for interactive English lessons and explanations. 3. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just like Senna pushed himself to the limit, push yourself to speak, even if it's not perfect. That's it for today's lesson. We learned new vocabulary, explored grammar, practiced pronunciation, and discovered tips to think in English. Now it's your turn. Try using today's words and grammar points in the comments. And don't forget, learning a language is like racing. The more you practice, the better you get. See you next time on StoryWise English.